We can access historic, intraday, and real-time market data. The approach is the same for all three, either through REST, through SQL, or through Python, or visually through displays. First, let's find out about data coverage. I can click on the data assets link. That opens up a new tab in my browser, listing every data asset we provide and details on each one. Now, the top right on every display, we see a tutorial button. Click that and it will open up a 2-minute introduction. Now I can expand the grid and see a full listing, or search by country, by MIC, or one of the filters. Now the categories are available samples consolidated, where we combine fragmented liquidity for a region, cash exchanges, derivative exchanges, and indices. Now we provide a set of sample databases which are open to all registered accounts. So you can self-register for a trial, for example, covering cash and derivative markets. These cover data from the first 3 months of 2024. Let's look at a particular database. So I'll scroll down and select the US equities. Now the Info tab shows information about the particular data asset. Security types shows how we're dividing the symbol universe that we're collecting by security type. In this case, we're collecting over 5,000 equities and 4,000 ETFs. Data structures shows more information about the available databases, including tick, pre-calculated 1-minute bars for trades and quotes, and daily bars, and the available schemas for each table. There's more information on trade and quote conditions and holiday calendars by clicking through the rest of the tabs. I'll close this. Now, if we want to find more information about the list of available symbols, we can open up Symbol Universe. We can then start searching for a particular symbol. Or we can click on Summary and see the universe for every single data asset and by security type. So we're collecting around 5 million symbols, of which 3.5 million are options, 200,000 are futures, around 200,000 are equities, 250,000 future spreads. If I wanted to search, let's say in Tesla, we're pulling back everything that's related to Tesla that's not an option, or I could just pick options from this listing or pick the selected database that I want to focus in on. Now we can also simply look at the data, whether it's tick by tick, by clicking on the tick link. This opens up again a display, again with a tutorial button. We select the database from the available listing, select the symbol you want, the time range, whether you want to adjust for corporate actions, and get back the dataset. Either it's for trades or for quotes. If we have a consolidated market, there'll be MBBO. If we're looking at indices, we'll have an index set of data. Indicative, we're looking at closing and opening auctions, and market phase will give the exact time stamps for when we change from market phases. So let's say from opening auction going to continuous trading, going to the closing auction, etc. So here we're looking at the price history for a UK instrument that trades in multiple currencies. We can always filter on one of the fields, and then we get back a better price history. And from each of these displays, we can always right-click and dump the data to Excel. Rather than looking at the tick data, we can also look at pre-calculated bars by clicking on the bars link. Here again, select the database, select the symbol, come back with a set of bars, either visually or in a grid form, whether they're 1-minute trade bars, quote bars, or we want more information about how those bars are constructed. Or we could be looking at market depth. So in this case, again, we open up the depth link, select the database, select the symbol, select how deep you want to go. So I'll say I want to go 25 levels. Then zoom into our period of time, select the point in time we're interested in, and then we can see the book at that point in time. This is showing you a flavor of the data that's available. Now, in reality, most access is expected to be programmatic. So let's look at REST. Click on REST endpoints. That opens up a display listing all of the REST endpoints, including a builder. So here I'm looking at trades that has a summary of what the URL would look like, the response format, the input parameters and what they mean. But let's go to the build URL. Here we're specifying a source database, a list of symbols, including our delimiter. So let's say Vodafone and HSBC. That updates the URL. Click the Open REST button, and that's returning data as a CSV. Now we're providing on the Python REST batch tab example code to pull the CSV back in Python or in C#. We can see this example code. There's a client ID and client secret required. We can find from our profile at the bottom the client ID and client secret to use. So literally copy and paste this into your Python IDE, run it and pull back the data. And all you would need to change is these OTQ parameters, the symbols that you're wanting to retrieve, and whether you want to adjust or not for corporate actions. Now we also have our Python API, which you can pip install. Here we can again specify query parameters, specify a client ID and client secret, run the query, but this time we'll get the result as a pandas data frame. And then you can continue to work with the data in pandas. So there are a set of endpoints which cover retrieving data and more analytical endpoints. But if you wanted to go and explore the data further, rather than looking at REST, you can just query via SQL. Now in this display, you can just query by SQL by modifying any of the examples and just clicking apply and getting back the data. So here we're specifying the database, the table, the symbol we want, and the time range. And if, for example, you wanted to retrieve data with a Bloomberg symbol, before the database we set a prefix of BSIM. For a QSIP, prefix of CUS. For a FIGI, FGC. For a composite FIGI, ISIN, ISN. Or if we wanted a CDEL, SED. And again, there are lots of examples here to investigate, ranging from very simple data retrieval to more time series related examples. Now, we can issue these queries dynamically here, or we can just write a REST URL. Here's a Python example to doing this, issuing our SQL statement via REST and getting back a CSV, or again, we can use our Python API to issue a SQL statement and get data directly back as a pandas data frame. Now, SQL can get increasingly complex, so if we want to go beyond SQL, we can directly use the Python APIs. And we have two syntaxes. One is a direct graph API, where we're opening up our new display. Here we're looking at adding filters. So my graph consists of defining a series of nodes. In this case, I'm passing through these fields for my trade table. I'm adding a calculated field, I'm adding a filter, so a where clause, I'm building a graph based off those nodes, then executing that graph for my time range and my symbol or set of symbols. Again, passing in my client ID and client secret. So here you can copy and paste this code into your Python IDE, execute it, modifying as you wish. And looking at the examples or looking at the help documentation. Now we also have more of a pandas style Python API where you define a data source. In this case, I'm going to my US comp sample and my trade table, and then I do operations on that data source that looks like operations on a data frame. In reality, we're building a query that gets executed with otp.run, again specifying our start and end time, our time zone, and our symbol or set of symbols, and we get back our data set. Again, as a data frame, which we can then continue to iterate upon. Now, there are a whole set of examples here, or we can click on About, open up our OneTick Buy documentation, and either go through the documentation or search for more information. Now, in all of these cases, you'll need a client ID and client secret, which you'll find at the bottom. As a self-registered user, there's a demo account, which is restricted. Those restrictions we can see here. So you can only run one query at a time, and you can only pull back 10 megabytes of data. Then we have a basic level of service where we can pull back more data, so a gigabyte, or a premium where we can pull back 20 gigabytes of data in one query. So you can increase the amount of compute you're using in the environment. Ideally, you want to run the analysis as close to the data to minimize your data transfer latency. Now you can also find out the datasets that you're subscribing to. Here I'm logging in as a trial user, so I see the available samples. You can see the list of available data assets. And for registered users who are subscribers, we can see a list of all of the accounts within your kind of customer team and the data acts, what data and what queries you've been running. So my profile page is kind of the starting point for jumping into either retrieving data through the API or looking at data visually or seeing the available set of data assets.